My daughter forbade me to come to my granddaughter's baptism. My reaction left her in shock, for I revealed my secret fortune. Alara sat perfectly still on her antique armchair, the soft glow of the table lamp casting long shadows across the Persian rug. The air in her elegant, yet understated, living room, usually a sanctuary of quiet reflection, now hummed with a palpable tension. In her trembling hand, her phone displayed a message, stark and unforgiving. The words, delivered by her daughter Lyra's precise, detached tone via text, felt like a physical blow, a sudden, sharp intake of breath. Mom, about Evie's baptism, Lyra and I have decided it would be best if you didn't attend. We're aiming for a certain atmosphere, a specific kind of guest list, and, well, your presence might just complicate things. You understand, right? It's nothing personal. A chilling cold spread through Alara's veins, starting from her fingertips and seeping into her very core. It was the final shard of glass in a heart already fractured by years of subtle slights and overt exploitation. Lyra's casual dismissal of her mother's ordinariness and modest demeanor as an embarrassment within her elite social circle was not just an insult. It was a public declaration of Alara's perceived worthlessness in their eyes. Alara's breath hitched, not in despair, but in a sudden, icy clarity. For decades, she had worn her quiet strength as a shield, allowing her children to mistake her humility for weakness, her generosity for an endless wellspring. She had watched, with a quiet ache that had become a constant companion, as Lyra and Rhys had built lives of extravagant comfort upon the very foundations Alara had meticulously laid. It had been a slow, insidious erosion of her peace, each request a tiny chip at her resolve, until only a hollow shell remained. Yet, despite every sacrifice, every penny poured into their insatiable desires, she remained an inconvenient truth, a ghost from a past they wished to erase. She had wanted to be their quiet guardian angel, their silent benefactor, but instead, she had become their ATM, their complacent fool. As the cold realization settled, a profound transformation began within Alara. The deep, familiar ache of betrayal began to solidify into a bedrock of resolve. Her gaze hardened, her shoulders straightened, and a quiet, formidable power began to stir within her. The game, she decided, was finally over. Lyra and Rhys, oblivious in their gilded cage, were about to discover the true cost of their ingratitude. They had just, with a casual flick of a finger, ignited a fire that would consume the very scaffolding of their luxurious lives. Alara's life had been forever altered by the sudden passing of her beloved husband, Arthur, 15 years prior. Arthur had been a man of quiet strength, much like Alara, but with a keen business mind. He had built their fortune carefully, diversifying investments, always with an eye towards a secure future for their children. Their marriage had been a partnership of profound respect and mutual affection. He had never once, in all their years together, treated her as anything less than his equal, his confidant. His death, though devastating, had left her with a substantial inheritance, a testament to his shrewd investments and lifelong dedication. He had always envisioned a future where his family was secure, comfortable, and happy. Alara, in her raw grief, took this legacy to heart, believing that the greatest tribute to Arthur would be to ensure their children, Lyra and her younger brother, Julian, lived lives free from financial worry. Julian, a thoughtful young man, had chosen a path less trodden, pursuing a career in international aid abroad, maintaining a more independent and genuinely loving relationship with Alara, marked by calls of concern for her well-being, not her wallet. Lyra, in particular, had quickly developed an insatiable appetite for the finer things in life, an appetite that grew exponentially after she married Rhys, a man whose ambition far outstripped his actual means. Rhys, with his charming smile and persuasive manner, had seamlessly integrated himself into Lyra's world, seeing Alara as the ultimate enabler, a resource to be tapped. Alara, blinded by a mother's fierce love and a desperate desire for her daughter's happiness, had opened the floodgates of her fortune. She had hoped her generosity would buy her a place in their lives, a deeper connection, but it had only created a transactional relationship. The first major expenditure had been the down payment on Lyra and Reese's sprawling, 5-bedroom house in the exclusive Willow Creek Estates. Alara remembered the breathless phone call from Lyra, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Mom, it's our dream home. It has a chef's kitchen, a 3-car garage, and a pool. It's perfect." Lyra had gushed, not once mentioning how they would cover the substantial mortgage that would follow. Alara had felt a flicker of unease, a small voice inside wondering about their financial planning, but the thought was quickly drowned out by Lyra's infectious enthusiasm and Alara's own deep-seated desire to see her daughter settled and happy. Without hesitation, she had written a check for over $500,000, effectively gifting them a significant portion of the property. She had even quietly covered several years of property taxes and homeowners association fees, just to ensure they were truly settled and to prevent any early financial stress for them. Lyra and Reese, meanwhile, reveled in their new status, hosting elaborate parties where Alara often found herself in the background, introduced merely as Lyra's mother, as if her identity was solely defined by her relation to them, not by the immense wealth that underpinned their very existence. There was never a true thank you, only an expectation that more would follow. Then came the cars. Reese, aspiring to be seen among the city's elite, had expressed a desire for a luxury vehicle. He had spoken of networking opportunities and making the right impression. Alara, without a word, had purchased him a brand-new Mercedes-Benz S-Class, a vehicle costing upwards of $110,000. Lyra, not to be outdone, soon hinted at needing a more appropriate car for school pickups and social engagements, complaining about her older, perfectly functional sedan being simply not presentable. This led to Alara's acquisition of a Range Rover Velar, another $80,000 expense, paid in full. Over the years, these cars were traded in for newer, more expensive models, always with Alara footing the bill for the significant depreciation and the new purchase price. The cycle was relentless. Alara remembered one particularly frustrating afternoon when Lyra had called her, exasperated, because her Range Rover had a flat tire during a shopping trip to an exclusive boutique. Lyra had expected Alara to immediately dispatch a luxury roadside service, which Alara, always the enabler, had done, leaving her own errands unfinished. The demands were endless, their entitlement absolute. The grandchildren, especially Evie, became another bottomless pit of expenditure. Lyra insisted that Evie attend the prestigious St. Augustine's Preparatory School, where tuition alone exceeded $40,000 a year, not including the countless extracurricular activities, ballet, horseback riding, private tutoring, and exotic school trips to places like Italy and Greece. Alara had diligently paid every single invoice, year after year, for Evie and her older brother, Leo. She had bought them designer clothes, the latest gadgets, and showered them with lavish gifts for birthdays and holidays, often far more than Lyra and Reese themselves provided. Lyra would frequently send Alara lists of items the children needed, from specialized sports equipment to high-end electronics, treating Alara's bank account as an extension of her own. Alara longed for a moment when Lyra might offer to pay for something herself, or express a genuine concern for her mother's well-being, but such moments never arrived. Beyond the big-ticket items, there was the constant trickle of smaller yet significant financial support. Alara paid Lyra's and Reese's credit card bills, often thousands of dollars a month, without question. She covered the annual fees for their exclusive country club memberships, their designer wardrobes, and their impromptu luxury vacations to places like Santorini and the Maldives. Lyra would simply forward her outstanding bills to Alara with a casual, "Could you handle this, Mom?" And Alara, with a heavy heart but an unyielding sense of familial duty, would comply. She had even funded Lyra's brief, ill-fated venture into online fashion retail, pouring hundreds of thousands into a business that ultimately failed. Lyra never once offered an apology, acknowledged the financial strain, or even suggested a plan to repay the lost capital. It was simply absorbed into the ether of Alara's seemingly infinite resources. Alara remembered a particularly galling incident from a few years back. Lyra had hosted a lavish charity gala at their home, attended by the city's elite. Alara, dressed modestly as always, in a classic, well-maintained dress that she felt was appropriate, had arrived hoping to share in her daughter's success, to feel a part of their world. Instead, as she attempted to greet a prominent guest, Lyra had subtly, but firmly steered her away, her voice a low, dismissive whisper. "Mom, darling, perhaps you could help Mrs. Henderson find the powder room? She seems a bit lost." It was a polite dismissal, a clear message that Alara's presence was tolerated, but not celebrated, in their world. Lyra's eyes had flickered with thinly veiled embarrassment, as if Alara's very presence, her unassuming appearance, somehow tarnished Lyra's carefully curated image. Alara had merely smiled, a practiced mask of composure, and complied, her heart sinking with each step. She had felt like a relic, a piece of an unfashionable past Lyra wished to erase. The humiliation had burned, a quiet, persistent fire within her. Reese, while less overtly demanding than Lyra, was an expert at passive manipulation. He would often lament about a challenging quarter at work or a sudden unexpected expense, knowing full well that Alara would step in to bridge the gap. He would praise her wisdom and generosity, words that rang hollow even as they opened Alara's purse strings further. He saw her as a means to an end, a path to the lifestyle he craved. The children, too, had absorbed this culture of entitlement. Leo, at 12, had once scoffed at a gift Alara had painstakingly chosen for him, a vintage astronomy kit she thought would spark his curiosity, remarking, "Grandma, this isn't even the latest model. Don't you keep up?" Alara had just smiled, the familiar ache blossoming in her chest. Even Julian, during one of their infrequent video calls, had gently probed, "Mom, are you sure you're not overextending yourself? Lyra seems to have a lot of needs." Alara had deflected, too proud, too deeply entrenched in her role as benefactor, to admit the truth. Alara had kept her own life incredibly modest. Her home was comfortable but far from opulent, a testament to her sensible nature. Her car was a sensible sedan she had owned for years, well-maintained but never replaced for novelty. She rarely indulged in luxuries for herself, channeling every spare dollar, every investment gain, into what she believed was her children's security and happiness. Her friends often remarked on her frugality, unaware of the vast sums she was quietly disbursing. This modesty, however, only reinforced Lyra's perception of her as ordinary, as someone who simply didn't understand their sophisticated world. Lyra had even once suggested Alara get a makeover, a more modern wardrobe, hinting that her current appearance was an embarrassment. The suggestion had stung, a fresh wound on a heart already scarred. The constant drain, both financial and emotional, had begun to take its toll. Alara often felt exhausted, not from physical labor, but from the invisible burden of their expectations. She loved Lyra, with a fierce, primal mother's love, but that love had been twisted, exploited, and taken for granted. She longed for a simple gesture of appreciation, a heartfelt thank you, or even just a genuine offer to pay for a meal. But those moments never came. Instead, it was always about what more she could provide, what new problem she could solve with her money. The disinvitation from Evie's baptism was the final, undeniable proof that her generosity had bought her nothing but contempt. It was then, in the quiet solitude of her living room, as the last rays of sun faded, that the realization truly hit her. Her wealth was not a source of love or respect for her family. It was simply a tool they wielded against her, a means to maintain their opulent facade while keeping her at arm's length. The The tears that finally came were not of sorrow, but of a profound, liberating clarity. A silent promise was made to herself. She was done. The morning sun, usually a cheerful harbinger of a new day, felt different to Alara. It illuminated not just her living room, but also the sharp, decisive edges of her newfound resolve. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. The profound peace that settled over her heart was startling, a calm she hadn't known in decades. This was not anger, not vengeance, but a cold, calculated reassertion of self, a reclamation of her own life. Her first call was to her bank, a large international institution where her personal banker, Mr. Henderson, knew her intimately. His voice was warm and professional as he greeted her, accustomed to her quiet but substantial transactions. "Good morning, Mr. Henderson," Alara began, her voice steady, betraying none of the internal upheaval she had experienced just hours before. "I need to make some significant changes to my accounts, effective immediately." Mr. Henderson listened patiently as Alara laid out her instructions, meticulously, methodically. "Firstly, I need all direct debits and standing orders associated with the property at Willow Creek Estates. The mortgage, property taxes, HOA fees, utility bills, to be canceled. Any future payments from my accounts for that address are to be blocked. I understand there might be a short grace period for some, but I want the cessation of payments to be absolute and immediate." She paused, allowing the weight of the statement to sink in. "Secondly, I need all credit card authorizations for Lyra and Reese Maxwell, specifically their American Express Platinum and Visa Infinite cards, to be revoked. Any outstanding balances are to be transferred back to their individual responsibility. No further payments are to be made from my accounts on their behalf. This applies to any and all cards they hold that are linked to my primary accounts, direct or indirect." Mr. Henderson, usually imperturbable, hesitated slightly. "Mrs. Maxwell, these are rather comprehensive changes. Are you quite certain? There are substantial sums involved, and it appears to cover nearly all their major expenses, from their home to their daily living." "I am perfectly certain, Mr. Henderson," Alara replied, her voice firm, leaving no room for doubt. "This is a deliberate and final decision. Furthermore, any joint accounts I might have with Lyra or Reese are to be immediately closed, and the funds transferred solely to my primary personal account. And finally, all payments for St. Augustine's Preparatory School, including tuition, extracurriculars, and any incidental fees for Evie and Leo Maxwell, are to be terminated forthwith. I will no longer be responsible for their educational expenses. They will need to make alternative arrangements." She continued, detailing the cancellation of their car lease payments, their exclusive country club memberships, and even the small monthly allowance she had been giving Lyra for personal expenses, a sum Lyra had used for everything from designer handbags to expensive coffees. Mr. Henderson, sensing the steel in her voice, simply responded with professional efficiency, confirming each action. "Understood, Mrs. Maxwell. I will ensure these changes are processed as a matter of urgent priority. You will receive confirmations via email by the end of the day, detailing each action taken. Your privacy and instructions will be strictly upheld." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I appreciate your discretion and efficiency," Alara concluded, hanging up. A deep sigh escaped her, a breath she felt she had been holding for 15 years. It was as if the very air in the room had suddenly cleared. Her next call was to her longtime lawyer, Mr. Davies, a man who had handled Arthur's estate and her subsequent financial affairs with quiet competence. He, too, was accustomed to Alara's quiet demeanor and meticulous approach. "Good morning, Mr. Davies," Alara said, her voice now tinged with a quiet authority she hadn't possessed in years. "I require your services for an immediate update to my will and to revoke certain powers of attorney." Mr. Davies listened attentively as Alara explained. I need to revoke any and all general powers of attorney granted to Lyra Maxwell and Reese Maxwell. Effective immediately, they are to have no legal authority whatsoever over my financial or medical decisions. I want this legally documented and communicated to all relevant institutions. Secondly, I wish to revise my will. The previous provisions outlining significant inheritances for Lyra and Reese are to be removed entirely. Instead, I wish to establish a trust for my grandchildren, Evie and Leo, to be accessible only upon their reaching the age of 25, specifically for legitimate educational or medical purposes, and managed by an independent, reputable trustee, ensuring Lyra and Reese are to have no access to or control over these funds. The bulk of my estate, beyond this trust, is to be reallocated to various charitable organizations that align with Arthur's and my values, and a substantial portion is to be set aside for Julian, should he ever require it for his humanitarian work or personal needs, with the remainder held in a distinct trust for my own future needs and care. I also want to ensure that no property or assets currently solely in my name can be contested or claimed by Lyra or Reese under any circumstances. Mr. Davies, a seasoned lawyer, recognized the gravity of the shift in Alara's instructions. Mrs. Maxwell, this is a significant departure from your previous directives. Are you certain you wish to proceed with such comprehensive changes? These are not minor adjustments. Absolutely, Mr. Davies, Alara affirmed, her resolve unwavering. I have given this considerable thought, weighing every consequence. Please draw up the necessary documents for my review and signature as quickly as possible. I would also like to explore the legal implications of any attempts Lyra and Reese might make to contest these decisions, ensuring my financial independence is fully protected and their claims utterly baseless. Understood, Mrs. Maxwell, Mr. Davies replied, his voice firm with respect for her decision. I will have the draft documents ready for your review within 24 hours. We can schedule a secure video conference or an in-person meeting at your convenience to sign them. You can rest assured your wishes will be legally watertight. As Alara hung up, a profound sense of empowerment coursed through her veins. It wasn't about malice or revenge. It was about reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her carefully managed fortune. She had spent a lifetime nurturing, only to be dismissed. Now she would nurture herself. The thought of their reaction was not joyous, but a quiet, almost clinical satisfaction. Meanwhile, across town, the first tremors of panic were beginning to ripple through Lyra and Reese's perfectly manicured existence. Lyra, enjoying her usual mid-morning latte at her favorite upscale cafe, surrounded by other impeccably dressed women, handed over her American Express Platinum card. The barista swiped it, then frowned. I'm sorry, Ms. Maxwell, it's been declined. Lyra scoffed, a dismissive wave of her perfectly manicured hand. That's impossible. Try again. It must be a system error. This card is never declined. Her voice carried a hint of irritation, loud enough for a nearby acquaintance to glance over. The barista tried again, her expression apologetic. Still declined, Ms. Maxwell. It says, account suspended. Perhaps there's an issue with the linked account. Lyra's perfectly manicured brow furrowed in annoyance, a flush creeping up her neck. Suspended? That's ridiculous. This card is linked to my mother's primary account. It's never declined. She snatched the card back, a blush creeping up her neck. She pulled out her Visa Infinite, equally confident. But a tiny seed of unease had been planted. That too was declined with the same curt message. Lyra left the cafe in a huff, muttering about incompetent banking systems and archaic technology. But the seed of unease began to sprout. The public humiliation stung. Reese, at his lavish downtown office, experienced a similar, jarring moment. He tried to pay for his lavish executive lunch with his corporate Amex, only to have it declined with a message about insufficient funds. He tried his personal card, the one linked to Alara's account. Declined. He dismissed it as a temporary glitch, Perhaps an issue with the restaurant's machine or a hold on his corporate account. He called the bank's customer service, expecting a quick fix. Instead, a polite but firm voice informed him, "Sir, all authorizations for payments from the primary account holder, Mrs. Alara Maxwell, have been revoked as of this morning. There are no available funds on this card under your name, nor are any further payments authorized." Reese's jaw dropped. The reality of the situation began to dawn on him, cold and hard. Later that afternoon, Lyra's phone buzzed with an urgent email notification. Payment for Mercedes-Benz S-Class lease declined. Moments later, another Range Rover Velar Finance overdue payment notice. Immediate action required. A cold dread began to creep in, chilling her to the bone. Lyra immediately called Reese, her voice sharp with nascent panic, bordering on hysteria. "Reese, something's wrong with the cards, and the car payments are bouncing. What in God's name is going on? Is this some kind of technical glitch?" Reese, who had just received an alarming call from the St. Augustine's Preparatory School bursar regarding Evie's and Leo's overdue tuition, felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. "The school just called me too, Lyra. They said the kids will be withdrawn by the end of the week if tuition isn't paid. And my cards are declined. All of them. The bank said, it's Alara. It has to be her. She revoked everything." He spoke the words in a stunned whisper, unable to comprehend the scale of the disaster. Lyra gasped. "Mom? No, she wouldn't. She can't. This is crazy. She's just trying to scare us, right? She wouldn't do this to her own grandchildren." But even as she said it, the memory of her mother's unnerving calm after the baptism text flashed in her mind. The panic began to blossom, cold and insidious, in the pit of her stomach. Their perfectly constructed world, built entirely on Alara's silent generosity, was beginning to crumble. The gilded cage was no longer gilded. It was dissolving into thin air. The doorbell chimed precisely at 6:15 p.m., a relentless, insistent peal that echoed through Alara's quiet home. She had been expecting them, timing their arrival with the efficiency of a seasoned strategist. Lyra and Reese stood on her doorstep, their faces a mixture of bewilderment, rage, and thinly veiled fear. Lyra's usually impeccable hair was slightly disheveled, her expensive handbag clutched like a weapon against an invisible enemy. Reese, his tie askew, his expensive suit looking suddenly ill-fitting, had a vein throbbing conspicuously in his temple. Alara opened the door, her expression serene, her eyes holding an unwavering gaze that unsettled them profoundly. There was no anger there, only a quiet, unnerving resolve. "Come in," she said, her voice devoid of warmth or welcome, a stark contrast to the usual effusive greetings Lyra expected. She led them to the living room, gesturing for them to sit on the very armchair where she had received Lyra's fateful text message just days prior. She remained standing, a silent, imposing figure, dominating the space. "Mom, what in God's name have you done?" Lyra burst out, her voice rising in hysteria, unable to contain her mounting panic. "My cards are all declined. The car payments are bouncing. St. Augustine's just called, threatening to expel Evie and Leo. What is this sick game you're playing? Are you punishing us?" Reese, attempting a calmer, more manipulative approach, stepped forward, his hands outstretched in a gesture of feigned conciliation. "Alara, please, let's be reasonable. There must be some misunderstanding. Is it a banking error? A glitch? We know you're always so generous, so supportive. This isn't like you. This is an overreaction." He tried a placating smile, a tactic that had always worked before, but it faltered under Alara's unwavering stare. Alara's gaze swept over them, a quiet storm brewing behind her placid exterior. "Misunderstanding?" she echoed, her voice soft, almost a whisper. yet it cut through their frantic accusations with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "There is no misunderstanding, Lyra. There is only clarity." "My clarity," Lyra scoffed, a nervous, almost hysterical laugh escaping her. "Clarity? You're clearly losing your mind. What do you expect us to do? Live on the streets? Become paupers overnight? This is insane." "Perhaps," Elara replied, her voice gaining a quiet strength that made Lyra recoil, a hint of steel that had been absent for years. "Perhaps you will learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet, a lesson I seem to have failed to teach you for far too long." "This is absurd," Lyra cried, her composure cracking, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "You can't do this to your own daughter, to your grandchildren. Think of Evie, Mom, her future at St. Augustine's, her friends, her social standing. You're ruining her life, our lives." She punctuated her words with frantic gestures. "Her life, Lyra, is not mine to fund indefinitely," Elara stated, her eyes locking onto her daughter's, unwavering. "Just as your life, Reese, is not my responsibility. For 15 years I have been your personal bank. Do you truly have no idea how much I have poured into your lives?" She then began to speak, not with anger, but with a chilling precision, enumerating every single financial contribution she had made. A cold, hard list of their dependencies. Lyra and Reese listened, their faces slowly draining of color as the true scale of Elara's generosity, and their own parasitic existence, was laid bare before them. Each item was a hammer blow, shattering their illusions. "Let's start with the house," Elara began, her voice steady, each word measured. "The down payment for Willow Creek Estates, $500,000, wired on June 12th, 15 years ago, plus property taxes and HOA fees for the first 5 years, totaling over $70,000. Did you forget that, Lyra? Or the full payment for your first Mercedes-Benz? Reese? $110,000 on August 3rd, 14 years ago. And Lyra's Range Rover Velar, $80,000 2 years later. Replacements for both vehicles, every 3 to 4 years, always paid in full by me. That's easily another $500,000 in cars alone, not counting the insurance or maintenance I frequently covered." Lyra opened her mouth to interrupt, a protest forming on her lips, but Elara held up a hand, silencing her with a quiet authority that brooked no argument. "Then there are the school fees. St. Augustine's Preparatory School, $40,000 a year per child, for the last 7 years for Leo and 5 for Evie. That's over $500,000 for their education alone. And the extracurriculars? Horseback riding lessons at the exclusive equestrian club, ballet at the city's most prestigious academy, private tutors for every subject, school trips to Italy and Greece is another $100,000. Easily. All from my accounts. You simply forwarded the invoices without a second thought." Reese swallowed hard, his face pale, beads of sweat forming on his brow. He had always known Elara was wealthy, a source of endless funds, but he had never bothered to track the actual numbers. He just knew the money was always there, flowing freely. "And your credit cards?" Elara continued, her voice unwavering, building the damning case. "I've paid your monthly statements, religiously, for over a decade. Thousands upon thousands of dollars every month. Designer clothes from Paris and Milan, luxury holidays to the Maldives and Santorini, expensive dinners at the city's most exclusive restaurants, lavish gifts for your friends, all on my dime. I estimate that's well over $1 million in credit card bills alone. Your country club memberships, your health insurance premiums, even the repairs on your leaky roof last year, all me. The funding for your failed online boutique, Lyra? Another $200,000 that simply vanished without a trace. Never a word of apology or repayment." Lyra's face was contorted, a mixture of shame and fury, the mask of entitlement finally cracking. "We never asked for all of it, Mom. You offered. You wanted to help. You loved us. She shrieked, desperate to deflect the blame. I offered because I loved you, Lyra, Alara countered, her voice now edged with profound pain, a raw vulnerability she rarely showed. I wanted to ensure your happiness, your security. I believed in you, but you took my love, my generosity, and twisted it into a leash. You saw me not as your mother, but as an endless source of funds, a mere convenience. And in return, what did I receive? Condescension, disregard, public embarrassment. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a low, powerful tone that resonated with years of suppressed emotion, each word a carefully aimed dart. You called me ordinary, Lyra. You told me my presence would complicate things at my own granddaughter's baptism, a sacred event. You said I was an embarrassment to your societal circle, unworthy of your company. Do you remember saying that, Lyra? Do you remember how that felt to hear? After everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed. Lyra flinched, her eyes wide, for the first time truly seeing the depth of her mother's hurt, not just the financial cutoff. Her previous tears had been of self-pity. Now, a tremor of genuine fear ran through her. Rhys stood frozen, unable to speak, the weight of Alara's words crushing him. You have exploited me, Lyra. Both of you, Alara continued, gesturing to Rhys, who remained speechless. You have consumed my resources, my energy, and my very spirit, all while treating me as an inconvenience, a shadow to be kept in the background. You wanted me out of your societal circle because my quiet presence highlighted the truth. Your entire luxurious life is a facade, built on my silent sacrifice, my unacknowledged wealth. And now that facade is crumbling. Lyra's eyes welled up with fresh tears, not of remorse, but of desperate fury and frustration. You can't do this. You'll ruin us. This is blackmail. This is cruel. Blackmail. Alara smiled, a chilling, humorless smile that didn't reach her eyes. No, Lyra. This is freedom. My freedom. The taps are closed. Every single financial lifeline you have enjoyed from me has been severed. Your house, your cars, your children's private education. They are no longer my concern. My lawyers have ensured my decision is final and legally binding. Any attempts to contest it will be futile. My money is no longer your safety net. My love is not for sale, and neither is my respect. You wanted me out of your societal circle? Consider yourselves out of mine. She paused, allowing the crushing weight of her words to settle, to sink into their stunned minds. My decision is final. You are on your own. Rhys finally found his voice, a desperate, pathetic plea. Alara, please, what about the children? Evie needs St. Augustine's. Leo has friends there. This will destroy them. Their lives will be ruined. No, Rhys, Alara replied, her voice firm, unwavering. It will teach them. It will teach them the value of hard work, the importance of earning what they have, and perhaps the true meaning of gratitude. Lessons you both clearly failed to learn, despite every opportunity. You are resourceful, aren't you? Figure it out, just as I have had to figure out how to live with your ingratitude for all these years. My responsibility to you ended when you decided my presence was an inconvenience. Alara looked from Lyra's tear-streaked, enraged face to Rhys's pale, defeated one. There was no going back. The woman who had meekly enabled them for years was gone. In her place stood a woman forged in the fires of betrayal, now tempered with an unbreakable will. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by Lyra's ragged sobs of frustration, not regret. The great confrontation was over. The game was truly finally done. Lyra and Rhys stumbled out of Alara's house, leaving the pristine quiet of her street for the harsh reality of their own collapsing world. The air was thick with the unspoken accusation between them, the fragile veneer of their marriage already cracking under the immense pressure of their shared downfall. They had arrived with demands and pleas. They left with nothing but the chilling echo of Alara's final words, a cold, hard truth that resonated in their ears. "She's insane," Lyra shrieked as soon as they were in their car, pounding the steering wheel with her fists, her expensive rings digging into the leather. "She's completely lost it. What are we going to do? We have no money. Nothing." Reese, usually the calm, calculating one, was just as frantic, his carefully constructed composure shattered. "I don't know, Lyra. I've tried calling everyone I know. My brother said he's strapped. Your friends are not picking up. Everyone knows we're leveraged to the hilt. No bank is going to give us a loan without collateral, and all our assets are tied up or already paid for by your mother. We're completely exposed." The financial empire they had so carelessly enjoyed had vanished overnight. The phone calls began immediately, each one a fresh blow, a cruel confirmation of Alara's words. Lyra's credit cards were not just declined. They were frozen, reflecting a massive outstanding balance now solely in her name, debt she had no means to pay. Reese received similar notifications, his own cards showing overwhelming balances. The car financing companies called, demanding immediate payment for the overdue luxury vehicle installments. Without Alara's automatic transfers, they were instantly in default. Repossession notices were threatened within days, their gleaming status symbols about to be seized. Then came the call from their mortgage lender. The monthly payment previously handled by Alara had bounced. Their house, the sprawling mansion in Willow Creek Estates, a symbol of their false prosperity, was now at severe risk of foreclosure. They had relied so heavily on Alara's generosity that they had never bothered to build up their own substantial savings or maintain an income large enough to cover these colossal expenses. Their entire lifestyle was predicated on someone else's wealth, a fragile house of cards now collapsing in on itself. The most humiliating blow came from St. Augustine's. A formal letter arrived the next morning, stating that due to sustained non-payment of tuition and fees, Evie and Leo would be officially withdrawn at the end of the week. Lyra wept hysterically, not for her children's education, not for their intellectual growth, but for the social shame. How would she explain this to her friends, to the other wealthy parents at the school gate? Their gilded world was not just tarnished. It was shattering into irreparable pieces, taking their social standing with it. Their social circle, once so admiring of their apparent affluence, began to notice. Declined cards at restaurants, the absence of their usual lavish vacations to exotic locales, the sudden quiet around their previously bustling home. Whispers started, insidious and swift, spreading like wildfire through their superficial connections. Invitations to exclusive events stopped coming. Lyra, who had prided herself on her social standing, on being at the very heart of the city's elite, found herself increasingly isolated, her carefully curated image dissolving before her very eyes. The cracks in their marriage, which Alara had so deftly observed, widened into gaping chasms. Arguments became commonplace, fueled by blame and desperation, their resentment of each other almost as strong as their resentment of Alara. As Lyra and Reese spiraled into chaos, Alara embarked on her new life. The day after the confrontation, she woke with a lightness she hadn't felt in years, as if a monumental weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She made herself a simple, yet delicious, breakfast: fresh fruit, warm toast, and perfectly brewed tea, and savored every bite, truly tasting the food for the first time in ages. The morning passed in quiet reflection, filled not with anxiety, but with profound peace. She called an old friend, Margaret, whom she hadn't spoken to properly in years, too busy catering to Lyra's needs and dealing with the constant emotional drain. Margaret was overjoyed to hear from her, and they made plans for lunch the following week. It was a small step, but a monumental one, a deliberate act of reconnecting with the genuine relationships in her life. That afternoon, Alara called a travel agent. "I'd like to book a trip," she said, her voice filled with a newfound excitement and anticipation. A long one, to Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia. And I want to do it properly, first-class flights, comfortable hotels, private tours, truly immerse myself in the culture. And I want to leave next month. The travel agent, accustomed to Lyra's demanding, last-minute luxury requests through Alara's account, was pleasantly surprised by Alara's calm, confident demeanor and her clear, unhurried instructions. Alara then called her financial advisor to discuss new investment strategies, focusing on sustainable and socially responsible ventures, reflecting her personal values rather than just maximizing returns for others to spend. The air in her home felt lighter, cleaner, as if a great weight had been lifted. The relief was profound, a deep, pervasive sense of peace that settled into her bones. She felt, for the first time in a very long time, truly free. Months later, the transformation in Alara was astonishing, both externally and internally. Her eyes, once shadowed with an unspoken sadness and fatigue, now sparkled with genuine joy and a vibrant curiosity for the world. Her posture was more erect, her step lighter, almost buoyant. She had returned from her extensive tour of Southeast Asia, brimming with stories of ancient temples, bustling vibrant markets, and breathtaking landscapes she had explored with an open heart. She had connected with people from different walks of life, far removed from the superficiality that had consumed her previous existence. Alara had embraced new hobbies with a passion she hadn't known she possessed. She enrolled in a pottery class, her hands finding a therapeutic rhythm in shaping clay, creating beauty with her own efforts. She joined a local book club, delighting in intellectual discussions and forging new friendships based on shared interests and genuine connection, not shared bank accounts. She volunteered at a local animal shelter, finding immense satisfaction in caring for creatures who offered unconditional affection, free from expectation or manipulation. Her quiet home, once a sanctuary from her children's demands, now buzzed with the quiet hum of her own contentment, filled with the sounds of classical music or the gentle turning of pages. She dined out with her new friends, attended concerts, and took spontaneous weekend trips to the coast, discovering small towns and hidden gems. Every penny she spent was for herself, on experiences that enriched her soul, not to maintain a facade for others. She was truly living, shedding the invisible chains of expectation and ingratitude that had bound her for so long. Lyra and Reese, meanwhile, had been forced to confront the stark reality of their new lives. The mansion in Willow Creek Estates had been foreclosed upon, stripped of its grandeur, and they had been forced to move into a much smaller, rented house in a less desirable neighborhood, a stark contrast to their former opulence. The luxury cars were gone, repossessed, replaced by a single, used family sedan. Evie and Leo were now attending the local public school, a jarring adjustment for children accustomed to privilege and private education, a daily reminder of their lost status. The initial bitterness and resentment towards Alara still simmered, a constant undercurrent, but it was now laced with a grudging, if unacknowledged, understanding of their own vulnerability and the consequences of their actions. Reese had taken a lower-paying job, swallowing his pride, and Lyra, after a prolonged period of shock and despair, had grudgingly found part-time work in retail, learning the harsh realities of earning a paycheck. Their social circle had largely dispersed, the fair-weather friends vanishing with their wealth, leaving them isolated. They were humbled, stripped bare of their material possessions and the status they had so desperately craved. They were learning, slowly and painfully, what it meant to earn their own way, to budget, to live within their actual means, to face life's challenges without a financial safety net. Their marriage, though strained, had endured the initial storm, now bound not by shared indulgence but by shared adversity, a fragile, hard-won unity forged in the fires of necessity. They were building a new life, brick by brick, not of gold, but of necessity. Alara, observing from a distance, felt no malice, only a quiet sense of justice and a profound understanding. She knew that true love and respect could never be bought with money. She had learned, through years of quiet suffering, that the greatest act of self-love is sometimes the toughest boundary. By setting herself free, she had not only reclaimed her own life but had inadvertently given Lyra and Reese the very lesson they had so desperately needed. That genuine worth comes not from what you possess, but from who you are and what you are willing to do for yourself. Her journey from silent martyr to triumphant sovereign was a testament to the fact that even in the twilight years, one could find a profound rebirth, proving that the most valuable investment one can ever make is in one's own peace and self-respect. Alara's journey is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from those who drain your spirit and exploit your generosity. Her story highlights the profound truth that true wealth lies not just in financial assets, but in self-worth, respect, and the courage to reclaim your own narrative. If Alara's story resonated with you, and you appreciate tales of resilience, justice, and life lessons, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We share many more compelling stories just like this one, designed to spark thought and inspire change. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your kindness was taken for granted or your generosity exploited? What did you do? Or, if you were in Alara's shoes, would you have made the same choice, or would you have handled things differently? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love reading your insights.